So welcome everyone to the October 2022 card meeting. I'm going to share my screen and share the agenda and we can get going. So I'm Roger Rayle. I'm chair of card and chair of Residents for Safe Water. And I've been watching over the Gelman site as a citizen volunteer now going on 30 years. So there's always new stuff. Let's get the share going here. All right, you should be seeing the agenda. Just to remind everybody who might be new to this that all meetings are open to the public and we video all the meetings and share them on YouTube once we're done. We might chop the beginning and end off. So if there's something that's really confidential, we can either edit it out later or we can turn off the video and turn it back on. I'll prefer to just edit it out later. So otherwise, everything you say will be recorded. And if you're, when you first speak, if you're going to be on camera, make sure you identify yourself the first time so that we know who you are and the new people know who you are. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Beth for the approval of the prior month's minutes.
Thanks, Roger. And for those of you who don't know, since I was just talking about being in the hurricane area, I've moved to Wilmington, North Carolina, and I'm going to continue to be the secretary until we could either find someone that was willing to do it. But this is a cause that, you know, I'm passionate about. So, and since we're remote anyway, I wanted to continue to do it. So anyway, the next item is the approval of the September minutes, and this is a board vote. Do I have someone that'll bring a motion to approve the minutes from September?
I move for that.
Roger, and supported?
I'll second.
Vince, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No? Okay, great. Thank you. The minutes are approved.
Thanks, Beth.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
All right, back to the minutes. Agenda, okay. At this point, I'll let Jack Eaton take over for the running the meeting.
Thank you, Roger. I'm Jack Eaton. I'm the Executive Director of CARD, an appointed position. We're just going to run through this old business. So I guess I'm addressing Dan Hamel here. Now that the Court of Appeals has concluded the appeal process, can we expect any changes in the confidentiality or going forward on the various things that have been held in abeyance?
First off, I'm Dan Hamel. I'm the EGLE project manager in the Jackson district, for those of you that don't know me. As far as going down the items there, I've been informed that confidentiality agreement that was agreed to by during the intervention, the interveners, EGLE and Gelman, is still in effect, as I've been told. So there's not going to be a release of some of that information that we had requested from Gelman. At least at this point, they would have to release that on their own. They have, so far, they have, that they have not done that. So as far as EGLE is concerned, it is still under, so that information that was in question that we had asked for is still under a confidentiality agreement. So if that changes, I will bring that information to this group and, moving forward. So
I seem to recall that EGLE had initiated a separate process where they made an information request outside of the
Yes, we did. We did that last December. I believe some of the letters following Part 201 and what we have right now, I don't know whether that is a viable pathway that we will bring up again to get information to be released. But we're kind of seeing where things are falling out relating to the Court of Appeals decision. And so we haven't, we have not pursued that again at this time. We have started discussion about that because I had identified that would probably be asked of us. So, but I don't have any information that, what's going to go forward or when we will go forward on continuing that avenue to have information released.
Thank you. Is there any update on the MS4?
Oh, the MS4 and the GSI, basically in the eastern area, Allen Creek Drain System. What we have met, we have met with Gelman. We have been last month, and there were some questions, some dialogue between the groups. WRD, Water Resources Division, which it handles the MS4 side of the question, and RRD handles the GSI side. I'm from RRD, and then we met with Gelman, and basically have decided that the two groups, the two divisions, will pursue the individual parts of their program. RRD will do the GSI, and WRD will, in cooperation with Evan Pratt, the Washtenaw County Water Resources Commissioner, will handle the MS4. We are both developing or finalizing responses and additional questions based upon that meeting that occurred back in August. So
Dan, excuse me, I couldn't find my raised hand here, but maybe you could quickly explain what the two issues are there that are competing issues.
Basically, the groundwater surface water interface GSI issue is under Part 201, contaminated groundwater cannot vent to surface water at a concentration greater than the criteria that has been developed under the rules of Part 201. The MS, so that's what RRD is evaluating, that contaminated groundwater venting into the Allen Creek drain, which then goes to the Huron River, discharges to the Huron River. And then the MS4 issue relates to the Allen Creek drain is an MS4 program sewer, basically a storm sewer under in Ann Arbor. So under that program, the WRD program, it's a federal program that the EPA authorizes EGLE to run in the state. And under that contaminated groundwater cannot vent to a MS4 system at any concentration. So basically, there should be no contamination in that sewer from groundwater venting into that sewer. Basically, that would be identified under the program as an illicit discharge, and then the Water Resources Commissioner, who holds the permit, holds the permit, the local entity, local unit of government, the entity holds the permit that is issued by WRD, the EGLE WRD, and they are required to eliminate that illicit discharge. And so, with the assistance of WRD, that the permit holder then works with WRD and the liable party that is causing that contaminated groundwater to vent, works with them to eliminate that discharge to where it eventually is zero into the sewer. So that's the federal program. So the GSI, the Part 201 program has criteria also the criteria for GSI under the current rules of Part 201 is 280 parts per billion. So as long as it doesn't discharge to, for example, the Huron River at a concentration greater than 280, then they are in compliance with Part 201. So now you see the, kind of the problem is on the one program, it's 0, the other program, it's 280, and then they are a state regulation. How do they come together and mesh together? So that's the problem or the discussion that has been ongoing. I do want to point out though, because of that's under the rules, the Part 201 and Part 31 under this the regulations in Michigan. But this also Gelman also has a consent judgment, as we know. And right now, with the appeals court decision to vacate the proposed fourth amended CJ, that consent judgment moves back to the third consent judgment. That's the one that is active now. And in that consent judgment, at that time, when that was written, when that was agreed to, the GSI criteria was not 280, it was 2,800 parts per billion. So we are following that, as under the CJ, that is the criteria that is currently being used with that. Now, the fourth amended CJ, the one that was vacated, the criteria went down to the environmental law criteria of 280. So that's another predicament that we're in. We have to work that out. So just like the ground drinking water criteria was 7.2 under the proposed fourth amended CJ. And since that was vacated, the third amended CJ, the drinking water criteria is 85 parts per billion. So it is some conflict that we are in the process of working out under the both programs.
Okay, I think Vince has a question.
Yes, Vince, I sorry, I always forget to look for raised hands, so please speak up.
Yeah, no, I just was waiting for you. That's fine. So you had mentioned that you were going to do tests in the Allen's Creek in West Park in October. Do you have
No,
a
I
date?
said November. I was
Oh,
going to
you-
bring you under what's new, under the new.
Oh,
I was
okay.
going to identify that we're going to be sampling in November.
I wonder if-
That's the goal.
Go ahead. I was just wondering if you could give me a notification. I'd like to go and see that actually happening.
Okay. Yeah, we just sample from the storm grate,
Right.
the
right.
manhole right adjacent to that storm grate in West
Yep,
Park there.
Yeah, I was
And
there
we have
once
to get
before.
the city, the city to come and open the manholes up for us
Right.
when we do that. But
Yep.
I'll give you a heads up when we're going to be in that area.
Appreciate it. Thanks for doing it.
And so if you're testing in November, we'll probably hear from you in December as to how that went.
Right. Yeah, I'll have criteria. Criteria. I will have results. Concentration usually takes 10 to 15 working days once I submit it to the lab. It's going to be when in November, I'm shooting for early November.
Okay.
That's when we did it last year.
Yep.
And it's, going to be, I also have to check with the lab because we have to give them a heads up. There's some slots. We have to let them know. And so they may say, hey, we're busy this week. Can you do it that week? So plus or minus early November is what my goal is. And we will do not only the Allen Creek drain, we will do all surface waters that we've done historically. So all the Honey Creek, the unnamed tributary to Honey Creek itself, the Huron River to the north, and then the ponds and First Sister Lakes and Third Sister Lake, Second Sister Lake, all of the surface waters that we've done in the past, we will go back and do in November over a couple day period.
Thank you so much.
Again, we will also do that sampling after making sure that it has not been raining for 72 hours in dry conditions, at least for the storm sewer sampling.
Great,
Right.
thanks.
I see no other hands raised, so I'm going to move on to item C. Patti, do you have anything to say on the Sentinel wall?
I do. Thank you. So council did approve the budget in September for the drilling contractor. So we are working through getting that on the books, the contracts and all that stuff with the city. So we're looking at probably early November to be out in the field to complete a test boring. Dan Hamel kindly reached out to me a couple weeks ago when they realized that Gelman was going to proceed with a well very near our first location on Sequoia Parkway. So we are not going to do that one because it's essentially in the same location. And Dan will speak to that, I'm sure, later. So we're proceeding with the second of the two that were authorized, and that is in Garden Homes Park, just a little north of there.
Okay.
North and east there. Yep.
Have you ever?
I had a quick question about the manhole at West Park. Isn't there a swirl separator there?
Yeah, that's where we will, there's a manhole right adjacent to it. So basically we will sample the swirl chamber. That's where a lot of the leg comes down through there. And that's where we have been sampling in the past. So any samples you see that is, I think it's called West Park Southwest, West Park SW. That is where we collect that sample. It's out of that swirl chamber, but if you look, there's a manhole right next to it, and that's how we access it.
So does that affect the concentrations? Does it
Well,
concentrate stuff,
that is where the storm sewer comes down. That's where the storm sewer, that's part of the storm sewer system, and that's where we have been collecting it. So whether it affects the concentrations, again, 1,4-dioxane, although is considered a volatile organic compound, it doesn't volatilize real easy, so that's where we've been taking it. So I don't want to change it. Again, what we will do then, we will take it at that point, but we will also take it down on the road to the east there, Chapin. There's a manhole down there, that we will take it right at the entrance there, just to the south of the entrance into that West Park ball field area off of Chapin there. So we will also have another sample in a less, not as much water running through, time.
Are you going to sample a pond as well, like you did before?
Yeah, we'll sample
Great.
all the water sample,
Okay.
surface water samples we've done in the past. We will attempt to do that again in 2022 here.
Thank you.
So I was going to ask Patti, or just in general, does the city consider CARD a resource and ask CARD for its suggestions on where wells go? I'm not sure if we've ever been asked our opinion on wells, and I think some of the well locations in the past were not the best, in my opinion. So
The well locations for these vents were based on modeling that we had done in 2018 and 2019.
well, I think CARD has a lot of experience. I think the city should take advantage of that. Thanks.
Okay. If I can ask everyone to use the little hand raising feature, I appreciate that. Thank you, Patti. Did you have anything more on that?
I do not.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next item, which is the Superfund site. Does the Dingell office have anything to report on that?
Nothing on Superfund specifically today. I do want to mention though that Mrs. Dingell is meeting, I believe, the end of this week or beginning of next week with the Region 5 EPA administrator. So just that she's continuing to push that urgency. And there's a very, I think, collaborative sense of urgency to see what can be done to push that Superfund site designation. And she's very appreciative of SIOS testing that recently came out, and SIOS commitment to that testing, very helpful in pushing that sense of urgency. So that's kind of where we're at.
Kathy, you have a question?
Yes, for Joel. When the Congresswoman meets with the EPA Region 5, she is representing and advocating for other either existing Superfund sites or sites being considered for Superfund status. Is that true?
I would say it's a discussion over, it can be both. Both sites within the district. And there's generally an emphasis on Gelman, and a couple of others in downriver. But I know Gelman will be a real priority here at this meeting.
Oh, okay. I agree. I just wanted to
Yeah, absolutely.
make that clear that we weren't the only problem she's dealing with.
No, but definitely, as you know, a priority.
Yes, and she has a lot of experience with Superfund Site. So thank you.
So I didn't see anybody on the screen from the EPA. Is that correct? So we're going to move on then.
I had one question real quick. Does Debbie Dingell very interested in seeing the Gelman site become a Superfund site, just to refresh our memory?
In 2016, when the state changed the standard, she urged the city to seek EPA intervention. Council voted against doing that. There was some mention of property values or some such, but she's been pretty consistently a supporter of our position. Okay. I have myself down for this next item. I don't know why, but let's see if Kathy Knoll will take this item.
Well, I'm going to do the next item. Why don't you take this item, Jack?
Because it's all bad news.
I know. I don't want to talk about it. You do it.
So after Judge Connors entered a remedial order, Gelman filed an appeal, and on September 15th, the Court of Appeals basically agreed with everything that Gelman had to say. And so the trial court's order has been vacated. The court has ordered the parties, EGLE and Gelman, to go work out an agreement, has instructed the interveners that they really have no status in this litigation unless they go to the trial court and file their complaints, which is just fraught with a lot of complication. So at this point in time, whatever may come of a consent judgment is purely between the Attorney General's office and the polluter, and in the meantime, we're subject to the third consent judgment with its higher numbers. So I doubt that any party is going to take an appeal to the Supreme Court of Michigan. Boy, I'm looking through my notes here to see if there was any other bad news. Not that I can remember. Does anyone have any questions on this? Go ahead, Kathy.
I just want to say that we had a closed session early this morning. It was after midnight. And while I can't reveal what was discussed, I can tell you that I am very impressed with our new city attorney, Atlin Carr. I think she brings a fresh, neutral perspective to this issue. She did have a meeting with Dan Bicknell. That was a positive. And I've always been impressed with Nathan Dupes, the outside attorney. So while there hasn't been any public action, we continue to have great concern about the dioxane and are exploring options.
Thank you, Kathy. Go ahead, Mike.
Is there any meeting with the court, the circuit court, on the schedule at this point in time? Or has the circuit court provided any additional information as to when he expects or will set a time limit for filing complaints?
No, I can answer that. No.
So as it currently stands, the Court of Appeals has instructed the trial court to do nothing with regard to this because it's between the parties to the consent judgment unless they ask for help, and has instructed the trial court to only entertain what the interveners think if and when they file complaints. So there is no timetable for that. It's kind of in the hands of the interveners and deciding whether or not there's any benefit to going back to the trial court. Did you have anything more to add, Kathy?
No, I don't.
Are there any more questions about the Court of Appeals actions? Go ahead, Beth.
Oh, Roger, I think was first.
Oh,
Roger.
okay. Go ahead,
And-
Roger.
Yeah, for some reason, my raised hand goes away without me doing anything. Yeah, so the result of all this is a side result, really, is that the Gelman Paul Danaher's data on waters, on dioxin in our waters of the state and soils under the Eaton plant has been kept secret for 4 or 5 years, 5 or 6 years. And that's the first time on this site since the original consent judgment that we know of that data has been kept secret from the public. And as you know, the public has taken the lead on helping the regulators understand the nature of the problem. If it wasn't for the public, the dioxin wouldn't have been discovered in the first place, because Dan Bicknell was a member of the public when he got involved. And when I got involved in '93, the same kind of thing. I found things that we didn't want to pay taxpayer money to investigate because it's a very complicated site and we need more eyes on the problem and people discussing it. But the only way we know what's going on with the dioxin is if we have the data. Now, apparently the negotiators had access to this data, but it's a mystery to me why that data is still kept hidden from the public, because all of these actions that were being taken place and ordered to be taken place were based on supposedly that data. And so there are solutions, there are solutions to problems proposed without understanding what the nature of the problem. We don't have a good definition of the full definition of the problem, and yet we're throwing solutions at it without having the public be able to review whether those are good solutions. So I just want to point that out, that doing away with the confidentiality agreement, it should be a top priority, because otherwise Gelman can go on doing things like they did in the early days before this was discovered. They had data about their dioxin that they weren't sharing regularly with the regulators, and that's why we're in this mess, and we're going to be continuing this mess if we don't solve that problem. So thank you.
So I want you to recall that because it's going back to Gelman and EGLE, ostensibly the Attorney General's office, all of the negotiations will go back into secrecy. You know, one of the things that our attorneys emphasized when they brought it out into public, the fourth consent judgment out in public, was that it was so much better than what the state and the polluter had negotiated before the interveners were allowed to participate. And now we go back to secret negotiations again. Go ahead, Beth.
Well, then this means when we're going to get there on another topic, but that the whole work plan and court order stuff, have they stopped doing all that? And then that means no for Sister Lake discharge, I'm assuming.
Well, let's wait till that point in the agenda. Go ahead, Kathy.
Based on my previous comments, I want to say that the EPA is still the preferred route for me. And regarding Roger's comments, if he would draft up a request for that data and actually explain what data he wants, I think that I can take that to our city attorney and ask for that, because it should be public data, and possibly we can get help from some of our elected officials to make the request to EGLE to share the data. Even though I know there is some kind of agreement right now not to share it, but we need to make the case that it's our data.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Rita.
Just for the non-lawyers in the audience, when they say that the interveners need to file a complaint, it's my understanding that that basically means they file suit.
Yes.
If I'm not correct. Okay, thank you. I just think it's good to clarify that, because the word complaint doesn't mean.
I apologize. So
that's okay. Thank you.
A complaint initiates a suit, and so the interveners have the choice of whether or not to file complaints. Each intervener has its own status with regard to this plume. And as we've seen with the polluter in the past, if given the chance, they will fight throughout a whole trial over the complaint, and then they will drag it through the whole appeal process. So we've been told that the EPA is a slow process, but it's going to be every bit as quick as the state litigation. Anything further on this matter? We should probably move along to F, which is Kathy.
Okay. Scioto Township, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm having a problem here. Scioto Township conducted our 4th round of well testing. It was the week of August 22nd. We utilized the 522 method as we had done on all the 3 prior rounds. This new round included 63 residences. We found 10 positive detections with low levels of dioxane, 0.17 to 1.3 parts per billion. This round of testing concludes all of our anticipated testing for the near future. We tested a total of 122 private wells. Of these, there were 26 new detections. None of the recent detections from this 4th round are north of the northernmost detection in round 3. As you might recall, that one detection was very close to the Huron River, and it was more than a mile north of what was thought to be the boundary of the plume. None of the wells on the north side of the Huron River tested positive. We had 4 additional detections on Miller Road, 3 additional detections on Craig Road. We tested at the Knights of Columbus site. You may recall this is a site that is under consideration for a development, and that was not positive, it was negative. Keith Gadway is our consultant on the well testing. He's conferring with Larry Lemke to get Larry's perspectives on all of this. Keith believes that there is a distinct possibility that these positive detections represent fingers of the plume extending out. But that's just his hypothesis. He doesn't know for sure, and he will be conferring with Larry Lemke. Are there any questions? That's it. I think Roger's going to go over this in more detail. We sent him the data, most of the data yesterday. And excuse me. But I can answer basic questions.
I see no hands raised.
Okay. Thank you.
So you can move right on to the next item, which is G, the Knights of Columbus property.
Yes. The developers are pursuing this development proposal. They have requested additional conferences with our planner, members from the Planning Commission, and 2 township board members. I was present at the last meeting. I had not been present at any of the earlier meetings. There's a lot to be discussed yet. I don't know where this is going to go. There are many concerns about what they are proposing. Currently, they're proposing extending a water main out to their development proposal. This is all conceptual, and I don't know where this is going to go. So I really can't offer any specifics. I was hearing about this for the first time recently.
Great. Any questions on this matter? I did notice, oh, go ahead, Vince.
Thank you. Has the city of Ann Arbor indicated that they would have enough water to supply that development
Okay.
if needed?
I checked with our utilities director. Apparently, the contract that we have with the city of Ann Arbor has almost unlimited water options. Not so for sewer options. That's the sewer district that is much more restrictive. And this particular development would include 47 homes and an on-site sewer system, which raises other issues. I haven't even talked about that. But as it stands right now, it appears that the developer may be able to do this. Whether they'll get the necessary approvals from the township is another issue, and I don't know.
So I asked that question basically because the mayor of Ann Arbor was proposing we get Detroit water primarily because of lack of water for the future if we have growth. So unfortunately, that was brought up, but it's been denied. It's been tabled or set aside. Rita spoke and Dan Bicknell spoke in opposition to that. So, but thanks.
I will say that right now there are over 3,000 residences and businesses on municipal water in Scioto Township. It's primarily on the Jackson Road corridor and in the southeastern part of the township. That's a lot. That's a lot of people.
It is. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, for this development, who's going to flip the bill if this project was approved as far as attachment to Ann Arbor Water? Would the city and township be paying for this, or would the developer be flipping the bill for this?
This is all conceptual at this time. The developer is stating that they are going to pay the bill. However, they want a contractual option to allow sharing for some of the costs if others want to hook into it. And
Mhm.
again, this is all very conceptual. So I have no idea what the details would be.
Okay. Again, I guess my comment would be is just like with Scioto Township, just stick to your guns in terms of your land use plan and regulations, and do your due diligence. And thank you for this information.
Okay, thank you, James. Go ahead, Jeff. You're mute.
Thanks, Jack. Just real quick, Kathy, you know, the contract that you have with the city for water, is that, I mean, that's something that I could eyeball if I wanted to, I suppose, and you and anyone on either of the governing bodies probably could look at that. Is it like renewed frequently, or is it like a lifetime deal, or what is it?
I believe it's renewed every 5 years. There are certain provisions that require renegotiation, and I don't
like
know.
Volume kind of things, or?
I don't know what those provisions are. So I don't know. I believe we renegotiated within the last 2 years. It's fairly recent.
Okay, well, I'll ask to see what it is. I would don't
Sure.
know why we couldn't, you know.
Yeah, I would love to see it actually myself. I haven't
right.
seen it.
All right, thanks.
Go ahead, Roger.
So what I've zoomed in on here is another development that was in Scioto Township that somehow got city water. And why do you think they were able to get city water?
Which development are you referring to?
Right here. What is this?
Walnut Ridge?
Walnut Ridge, yeah. That was before you got involved, I think.
Yeah. Apparently that area has quite a complicated pumping system, and the developer paid for all of that. It's right across from Skyline High School.
It's just outside the city limit boundary here.
Yeah.
And had they had wells, what do you think would have happened to this plume of dioxin?
Hmm.
You think it
You
might
think
have
it would have
drawn
pulled
this
it?
plume of even faster to the river, where Ann Arbor gets 85% of its water? And in fact, these people would eventually, this properties here would, if it got into the city water and it wasn't removed, ironically, this development would have maybe having to had to drink dioxide in their water someday. So look at this as an example of what's going to happen with the KFC site. Because KFC site is much closer to the plume boundary. Maybe not anymore, because the plume boundary is now all the way up to here.
Right.
There are 3 or 4 properties here that were above 1 part per billion of dioxin in their well water. And at 2, remember in the old days, this former township neighborhood here in Evergreen, when their wells got to 2 parts per billion, they were hooked up to city water and annexed to the city. So why do we keep messing around with this dioxin? This is why we need the EPA in even more quickly now, because we have better data now. By the way, I'll go over this again later, but of these hits, 2/3 of them would be are 5 parts per billion or more, 0.5 parts per billion or more, 0.5 parts per billion or more, which means that had the state and the company been using their more precise analysis method, not as precise as what SIO used, that 2/3 of these would have been found earlier, even by the state's method and by Gelman's method. And yet, taxpayers had to pay for this. And those levels, 1 part per billion is 3 times what the EPA guidelines are, the standard guidelines that most states use and Michigan used to use, of a cancer risk of 1 in a million over a 70-year lifetime. That's that 0.35 parts per billion standard. So we're way behind in Michigan in terms of keeping up with the standards and making the polluters pay for sampling and cleaning it up. And we can't even get them to release their data to the public. I mean, this is where we're at. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out to everybody.
Alrighty then. I think we're done with item G, and we're going to move on to Dan's updates under item 4 on the agenda. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, Roger, can you give me power? I have a figure that I can share, like to share. Can I?
I think he's working on it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Host disabled. Okay, you need to give me permission, right, Roger? You're muted, by the way.
There, I think I've done it. Well, I couldn't do 2 things at once. So
Okay.
I was talking to myself there for a moment.
Let me know when you guys can see a map.
See the map.
Okay. Beth, you were asking of what is going on related since they vacated the response activity order. This is the map that I've been using about what has been accomplished under the response activity order. I can tell you that even though that was vacated a month ago, Gelman is out there still completing some tasks. This week they finished up this MW 150. So they've installed the latest, these Sentinel wells, formerly Sentinel wells, as identified in the response activity order. They've installed these. They installed this, started in August, installed MW 147 at this location. They're still working on getting access to these locations in the western area with the, verbally identifying that they're proposing to still continue install these. Right now, though, these down gradient monitoring down gradient wells, they are not proposing to move immediately for installation at those locations. They have told me that they are planning to go ahead with the installation of an extraction well in the Rosewell remediation area. They hope to have what they're going to do is they're going to rework an existing injection well. It's called IW2, and that was identified in the response in the order for proposed 4th amendment. They would drill a new one or rework or just re-outfit an existing injection well that is there, IW2. So they're going to do that first. They have said that they're going to be working on, they got all the accesses needed to get the infrastructure, the vault, underground vault, and the pipe that connects all the pipes. So they hope to do that here in October, and then in the near future get this extraction well going into the system. They are not pursuing right now this Park Lake well remediation area. If you remember, they had submitted an NPDES permit to discharge to First Sister Lake. They have stepped back from that, at least, for now. They're not they're not pursuing that, or not. The EGLE had identified they needed some more information to start that evaluation of the NPDES permit request for First Sister Lake. So I think Gelman hasn't submitted that information, as far as I know, and I don't think they're, you know, in a hurry to do that right now. And so that is, but they all are going to, again, I spoke about the GSI earlier, the GSI issues. They have a work plan for this area down here, and they have a work plan for the western area over here, and along the unnamed tributary of Honey Creek. And so I've been informed that they will, as they said in that work plan and discussed with us, they will start activities in the western area in the winter here when it's frozen. They can get into the area and do a little more work under frozen conditions, or, you know, where it's not a lot of water, as much water. And then we are going to give them a response back for the eastern area GSI activities here in the near future. So we'll see where that you know, where they go once that they receive that response. So that's the updated information that I have currently. Once these wells are installed, they've already sampled wells that they've installed previously. I anticipate that they will be sampling these here in the near future, you know, within a month, and any of the wells that are in place. The response activity order identified that they sample new wells on a quarterly basis. So I don't know until we finalize a monitoring plan, which is the last step of once all the wells are in. I don't know what the interval will be on the new wells here, but they will at least, I'm anticipating they'll at least have some initial samples done on all the locations that are available. And then I will post those in our access database, and we will eventually update those into the interactive GSI web map for the site. Just to give you some information on the cluster, there's a 3-well cluster at MW 150. There's a 3-well cluster at MW 147, and 148 and 149 have 2-well clusters. As far as vertically profiling, that means vertically sampling groundwater as they drill the bedrock. They drilled the bedrock in all these locations. The only information, the only positive detections that they had during their vertically sampling was at MW 148, where they had some positive detections between 1 and 2 parts per million on 2 of the samples that samples they collected when they were drilling to bedrock. The rest of these were all non-detect.
Is that parts per billion or parts per million?
Parts per billion.
Okay.
Did I say million? If I did, I misspoke. It's parts per billion. I think I have a couple of hands up. Jack, I can't tell. Okay.
I'll do it. Go ahead, James. You're mute.
Thanks, Jack. Dan, let me make sure I'm clear. I don't have agenda in front of me. Regarding the NPDES permit, I assume the renewal is still ongoing. That remains unchanged due to the court action, correct?
Right. The renewal is ongoing. So that's the latest. I checked again about that. Again, they're still planning to issue. They issue a renewal here in the near future. Well, get it into the last part of it is they'll give an opportunity for that renewal. And that renewal, what we're talking about is the discharge from the existing treatment system into the unnamed trib over here. You know, their actual groundwater discharge. They are discharging right now approximately 600 plus gallons a minute. You know, that's what they're pumping and treating in this current system, and they're discharging that under an NPDES permit, and that is what's being renewed. They are allowed to do that under the old conditions of the permit, meeting all the conditions of that older permit until the renewal is issued. So they're still pumping and trading, like I said, 600 gallons a minute. And that's the renewal part of it. The other NPDES permit that is into WRD is for this Park Lake extraction remediation area where it's requested to do a discharge into First Sister Lake. I think we've talked about this in the past. And that's the first process, at least under the response activity order. That was the process. They have to get the NPDES permit before they would install an extraction well here. If they don't get the NPDES permit for discharge into First Sister Lake, then this area, they will not, weren't required to install an extraction well. Well, that has kind of been vacated because of the court. So we don't know what, we're kind of working things out. We have to see where it's going to go.
And so my follow-up on that was really, but you say backed away, Gelman's just not doing anything with respect to it, or no one's touching it, or no one's talking. I guess
it's been less than a month since they vacated. I just, we haven't sat down. I mean, we've started some engaging with them of where are we going from here, but the details, we haven't got to that details yet of what they are planning, what we want, and that type of thing. So it's been only a month. So that issue on the First Sister Lake NPDES it's just kind of on hold. I mean, until, to see what they want to do.
And going back to the renewal of the current permit, you don't have a timetable of when the public hearing is going to be, correct?
No, I do not. I ask every month just to say, hey, I'm going to a CARD meeting, and I haven't been given a date yet of when they're gonna. What they will do is they will issue it, to a draft to Gelman. We'll get a first review of it, and then they will open it up for have a public comment period. So as soon as I know something, I will make sure that the CARD group knows something.
Well, appreciate that, Dan, and thank you for walking us through the process on these.
And you can get some of this data in Michigan Waters. That's the WRD database program for their permitting. So there's information in there. You can go into there and pick up information on the renewal. I mean, what they have, where they are, and then also the new permit. They have it in their system. So.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Thanks, Dan. This is good news because my constituents say in very simplistic terms, well, you lost in court, so Gelman has just stopped doing anything. Is that right?
No, they're doing stuff.
Yeah, and so I usually say, no, I know there's activity out there, but now I'll be able to say more. And regarding the wells that are being drilled right now, do we know what the data is, or that data is still covered by the confidentiality?
No, the data we're talking about, the vertical profiling data, I get that information. Basically, on each one of these locations, the yellow dots and the blue dots and the hatched dots that are coming, what we've done in the past is once they drill to bedrock, they collect their vertical profile samples, and then we have a conference call. Myself and our geologist, Chris Svoboda, and have a call with them that day and say, okay, they present the geology, the sample results, and we as a team, the regulator and the liable party, we come up with, okay, how many wells do we want to put in that location based on geology? Is there a water bearing zone to put a well in? If there was detections in that from the vertical profiling. So all of these locations, we have had an input on where wells should go. And like I said, in most of the locations, there's 2 or 3 cluster, monitoring wells at shallow, intermediate, and deep at these locations. So they're doing that, you know, as part of continuing that. Now, I don't, you know, like I said, they've backed off those locations F, G, and H. They're not committing to mobilizing to those right now. And they're still working on access for locations I and J on the western side, west of Wagner Road. So whether they move if they get access, whether they move immediately to put those wells in, again, that, you know, that we haven't been told, you know, when they would do the rest of the wells.
Oh, okay, so you get the results when they're monitoring, but is the data available to the public, or is it part of the confidentiality agreement?
No, that data is not part of the confidentiality agreement.
Oh,
The data,
okay.
yeah, the data as part of the confidentiality agreement is data that is on their property. In the marshy area and around their property, they did some work, and that has what being under that confidentiality agreement. This data is available, and I post it when I get results. The vertical profiling, I don't post that because I can't do that under my access database. But I'm going to try to, I'm hoping to generate a report or have Gelman generate a installation report that will be posted. What I'm going to ask.
Oh, okay, thanks. And my constituents are very interested in commenting regarding the Park Lake well permit.
Yeah, they will get an opportunity when that, you know, that's when if that moves on in the WRD program, they basically evaluate, they come up with a draft permit, they let Gelman take a look at it, and then they open it up for comments for the public. That's how they do it in their program.
Yeah.
As I understand it. That's not my program, so, but that's what I've been told.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Rita. You're mute.
I am more than mute. I was away from the computer. Wait a sec. So I have a couple of comments. The first thing is that, so the FG and H wells are also what you refer to as a down gradient, and these were the shallow wells. These were the wells that, no?
No, they'll drill the bedrock at those locations under the response activity order, except one of the locations. One of those locations is targeted to, there's a monitoring well near it. I think it's location H, is targeted to, they'll drill a well to a specific depth because they missed the depth, or the adjacent monitoring well doesn't, you know, the two wells don't, there's an interval that's missed. So I think H, they will not go to bedrock. The other two locations, they will drill to bedrock like all the other locations, and they will vertically profile to bedrock, and then we will decide how many wells, shallow, intermediate, deep wells. So
the vertical profiling will give information about the shallow,
yes,
the groundwater near the surface.
Yes, and most likely, just because of the area, we will insist that a shallow well, permanent well, be installed. You know.
Yeah. Okay. So another clarification. So it's from my reading, it looks like there were a sampling of shallow groundwater, not seeps, not specific as a shallow temporary well. That's only been done twice. Once was in 2016 by the Fleisch and Vanderbrink study for Gelman. And then the other time was by the county when Pratt had Tetra Tech do two temporary
borings in West Park and just to the north, to the west. Yeah.
So am I correct? So those are the only two where we've actually gone into the ground to get near surface water.
Right.
Okay.
In recent history, yeah, but
okay.
At least at these at two of the locations, we'll do that again.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying. Thanks.
Sure.
Go ahead, Vince.
Thanks a lot. Hey, Dan, I was curious, when they test down the bedrock or dig the bedrock, are they taking samples at bedrock or close to it? We asked that happen for many years.
Well, they'll take samples if there's
a
water
report
bearing.
them?
is if there's a water bearing zone
Mhm.
close to bedrock, they will take samples. Just realize a lot of the geology out here is very tight, dry, dimicton, it's called. It's a glacial sediment that it's very dense. It's very dry. So they will collect samples if there's a water bearing zone that they can get a sample from. If that is at depth near the bedrock, they will collect a sample. But a lot of these locations, there some of the locations, there was a very large interval of dimicton all the way down to bedrock from some depth, and the bedrock around in this area is, and they're going down. I think MW 150, they went down to 266 feet to hit bedrock. They had 3 zones that were water bearing, and we're going to install monitoring wells in those 3 zones. And one of those zones in that case is down at 230 approximate, plus or minus, where the screen will be. And so, but sometimes there is not a water bearing zone close to bedrock. It just dependent on the location.
Yeah, thanks. But one of the issues we've had over the years is we don't have very many readings at bedrock. And there's a concern that there's very super high concentrations at bedrock in different locations that we can't get data on for some reason. But
well, if there's not an aquifer close to the bedrock, I mean, you're not going to get a sample. And just realize that groundwater is not moving. Groundwater doesn't move through that dimicton.
Right,
so
right. But there were areas where there's wells were drilled, there was groundwater down deep near the bedrock, and it was never tested. And there was concern about trying to avoid testing at bedrock because potentially there could be very high concentrations at that location because it's not been tested very well. That's a concern we've had over the years. So thanks.
That's the proposed fourth amended CJ identifies the method to be used for drilling. And so there is, that method identifies going to bedrock and taking samples, in water bearing zones down to bedrock.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Glenn.
Dan, are they proceeding with the on-site bioremediation work? Do you know?
Yeah, I was going to get to that next on-site. They are, they're still, let me change the plan here. Like I said, this map is the phytoremediation area that has been installed. This is the former pond 1 and 2 area. But these trees are in, and they're still, proceeding with that activity. There. They are not at this point. Let me get to another one. They are not at this point moving right now to the phytoremediation that was identified for this marshy area. Again, that was part of the response activity plan. They have not confirmed that they're going to immediately move to that. So, but they have done the phytoremediation in this area right here. As far as the other on-site remediation, this area here, the former burn pit area, it has that is where the heated soil vapor extraction system is proposed to go. They have not confirmed a date if they will continue or whether they will continue to pursue that. So that was also in the response activity order plan, which was vacated. So. But they have done some work, and they've installed 2 of the 3 required extraction wells. This TW25 and this TW24 are installed and extracting, and they're very high concentration, several thousand parts per billion that are now being extracted and sent through into their treatment system. There is in the old order, in the 4th amended CJ, the one that was vacated, there was a 3rd required extraction well. They tried a test boring right here. They didn't really find a good water bearing zone to extract. They have not committed to install that 3rd extraction well yet. we are going to be asking, we would like to see that at maybe one of these alternate locations where we do some more extraction on the property, basically it pounds the dioxane out of the groundwater. So that's the current on-site activity that they are currently doing, and again, the commitment to move forward with the rest of them. They're not identifying a start time to complete those activities. So we will be discussing that, as we work through, replacing the third amended with an updated consent judgment.
Okay, as I recall, there are pretty high concentrations in the marshy area. And
yes, that's a high concentration area.
And
yes.
So it's basically, if I heard you right, they don't plan to proceed with anything in that area.
Well, they don't plan to proceed with the Fido right now. Now, whether they will do something in the future, again, we have to start talking about, okay, what on site, what do we have, what do we want to do? Again, my personal, I would love to see an extraction well close. Like they have one, a phase 2 well was identified up there. I would love to see another extraction well close to here. They do have an extraction well in the marshy area. It's very that pumps not a significant volume, but it's very high concentrate. It's high concentration. So I'd like to see another one in this area or here to catch anything extraction wells related to the groundwater contamination. They will also have to do, again, I talked about the Western Area GSI investigation. That involves the marshy area, that involves several locations in the West. That is separate from the response activity order. I mean, they still have to pursue GSI, separate from that. Now, it was incorporated into that fourth amended, but we will still continue to pursue, and they have initially identified, yes, we're going to go ahead and do some investigation activities related to GSI in the Western area. And that would include the marshy area. So we'll see where that goes. That includes borings up in here and borings down in this location, and then along the creek, along the unnamed tributary up here. So we will see where that goes. But they have at least indicated that they will continue to investigate that. The only bummer is now the criteria has gone back to 2,800 to before they have to do something under the consent judgment. So, but we will they realize, and you realize that we have new criteria. We're going to move forward to go back to those criteria, which are identified to be more protective of health and the environment. So,
thank you. So Roger has typed some questions into the chat. I'm going to let him ask those at this point, if you'd like to.
Well, actually, I'd like Dan to read the question and then answer it.
Okay, Roger, how do I where's the chat? Up there. Okay.
Down at the bottom of your window, there's a item that's labeled chat. And if you click it.
Yeah, I got it. There was 4 in. So what?
Is that covering up your screen when you read that? I was going to have Jack read it so he.
Well, I can read them if that's what you want.
Yeah.
Okay. How will we know if the phyto remediation is working, as we don't have the beginning secret sampling from that area? Again, understand that the phyto remediation is related to drop is being used to drop the water table. So we will have some indication from wells in the area is to drop the water table. It's not necessarily basically removing contamination, but that's one of the things about the phyto is we're going to have to see in the future how to see if it's meeting its objective. We don't have that. We don't have a final, if you want to say, sampling, objective sampling format or plan in place right now.
She's got 3 kids.
And then the other one, also likely very high PPB in the former burn pit area,
No, you're
being kept secret.
You skipped over some earlier questions.
Okay. Does Gelman use more precise sampling? Great. No, Gelman uses their internal lab, and their lab uses 1624, I believe, and their detection limit is 1 part per billion.
I thought they could detect. I thought they were tweaking theirs like you did yours to get below 1 part.
They have not identified that. They may be trying to see if they can get lower. Understand, though, realize, and we've said this before, is the requirement, to get down below 1 part per billion. There's not a requirement in part 201. I mean, 1 part per billion is
Dan,
cited there. So
the
they have not.
The whole point of having the best method is to give a heads up of dioxin before it gets to those higher levels.
I understand.
That's all. I just wanted to make sure.
But no, they haven't indicated that they, have that capacity in, right now. And then in the third CJ, it's the laboratory method is identified in there.
All right.
Method 1624.
I'll go ahead and read the questions. I have them up on the screen now. I was doing some other stuff.
Okay.
When will we get the well logs for the new wells that are going into the north?
Well, the well logs for the new wells in the near future, I have, I've requested them. They want to, they go back and they do it quickly so we can have our phone call, but they'll go back and make sure they are all in order and get the XY coordinates, get the elevations, everything will come. I do not want a partial completed well log because it'll get mixed up with a final well log. So, we have enough information to set the wells. And so we'll get that here, I'm sure, before the end of the year. I'm asking, I'm going to try to get them in kind of in a summary report. So.
And I don't think you've asked this one yet. How will we know if the final remediation is working if we don't have the beginning secret sampling from that area of fire remediation to compare it with? In other words, we should have a base layer, a base set of base readings, and the fire remediation supposedly is going to reduce the dioxin.
Well, the phytoremediation is put in there not to reduce the dioxin, it's to reduce the pathway. It's to slow down the pathway of high concentrations that moves vertically into the groundwater and then moves off site. So it's not there to it's not there to say, okay, I'm going to plant some trees, and so now the concentration is going to go go down in the groundwater. It's what it does, it slows down the vertical migration that gets, that can get into the deeper groundwater. And we have to, we don't have in place or haven't identified, if you want to say, objective sampling to do that. So we will be working with them in the future to determine, okay, what's, is this working? We'll ask them that question. So I don't have a real good answer for you right now.
So they're putting in trees, but you're not measuring the before and after dioxin.
Well, I mean, we have some historic information about the concentration, in the groundwater in that area. But
yeah, but some of that's kept secret.
Well, I mean, I can't, Roger, there is areas that that is confidential information. Yes, right. You're right.
So it sounds like the new readings are going to be confidential too.
I can't answer that, Roger, right now.
Yeah, just so everybody knows. And then the last point was talking about the pond area and the marshy area is high concentrations, like you said, but that in 1995 at the Scioto Township information session, Gelman pointed out that the pathway from the C3 high concentrations in there is going out to the west of the marsh area, northwest of the ponds, and making its way down to the D2 aquifer. So when you're talking about more activity west of the marshy area, that's not just marshy level. We're not just talking about the shallow marshy area. It's also the pathway beneath that. And I wanted to know how much of that, those lower areas are being remediated there. You know, what new activity in those intermediate areas is going on. And again, we don't have the.
Well, Roger, they did have put extraction wells into that.
Yeah, but they've done some sampling in that area according to the well permits that were drawn from the county, but we haven't got the results for those well permits, so we really don't know what the problem is in that area. They're proposing a solution, but we don't have the data that supports whether that solution is adequate. That's all. Thanks, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Dan, I don't see any more hands raised if you want to move on to the next item.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing.
Share and
just a second.
Then I'll share my screen.
Is that how I stop?
Well, you could just talk about the. Let's see. You were on item A, is that right? And 140.
Yeah, that item A. We kind of moved around there. How do I stop sharing here, Roger? So
you got to find a place on your screen where there's a pop-up that says "Stop Share."
It might be at the top of your screen.
Yeah, I'm looking. Pause share, new share, stop share. There it is.
All right. So let me go ahead and.
Yep.
I got to share my screen.
Under the agenda, the item B is, and I'm a little confused. I wanted to ask what that agenda item was, but the agenda item is MW 147 and contact tracing, the 1 to 2 parts per billion.
I put that there, Dan, just because it was a new positive detection up near the prohibition zone, and last month you guys were talking about, well, this is why we should do contact, see where it came from. I didn't know if you have any more information on that.
No, I just realized though that the MW, I think you meant MW 148. 148 is the well in the north, one of those 3 new wells I was talking about. 147 was to the south, down there, the Montgomery well, and that didn't have any vertical profiling data. The one to the north there, one of those wells to the north, it's 148, and that's the furthest one to the west. And that had 2 locations, 2 vertical profile samples that had 1.4 and 1.5 parts per billion. So yeah, I'm not quite sure.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So just so people realize, the 147 is the southern prohibition zone area. The 148 would be what you're asking about. And contact tracing, the wells that were proposed have been installed. Whether as far as contact tracing, we're not going to be right now. We aren't. Well, there is no wells planned back toward the plume. We will utilize the existing monitoring well network within the plume area to evaluate concentrations, in the plume. As far as going out away from to the north and into Scioto Township, there are no monitoring wells planned past that northern tier of monitoring wells, other than next year. I mean, that's in the next bullet. There will be, EGLE has along with Washtenaw County will be sampling more residential wells next year up in Scioto Township. We've expanded that program at least for 1 year to include, because of the results from the Scioto sampling, to kind of confirm and go out into Scioto Township next year and gather more sampling results. And that'll be starting next for 2023. That'll start in April, and it'll be through the summer and early fall. And there'll be 244 total wells sampled next year under that long-term monitoring program. A big portion of those will be in Scioto Township. Then the next bullet is the water resources. We talked about the 2 NPDES permits. I don't have any information on the renewal. And I, identified the First Sister Lake new application. Again, they kind of step back a little bit. Whether that pursue that, we will find out here in the future, near future, as we start engaging to and talking about the updating the 3rd amended CJ. And that's all I really have. I don't have anything new, what's new. Does
Okay.
anybody have any questions?
I have one. I'm looking at the meeting minutes from the last meeting, and when we were talking about monitoring, well, in the minutes it says 147, but I imagine it was 148, where there was a 1 to 2 parts per billion detection. Roger asked how many other monitoring wells or purge wells are around the elevation of 180 feet.
That's something I went right before the meeting here. I went back and to my notes, and I did not find that. I mean, I didn't research and I don't have that available tonight.
Okay.
So I made a note, an action item here in my notes to kind of be able to talk about that. Some of the questions that were from this meeting and last meeting, I'll try to have some answers next meeting.
Thank you so much. And are there any other comments or questions under this section before we move on? In that case, I'll turn it over to Roger.
All right, let's see if I can find my.
I want to note that we're 10 minutes ahead of schedule, so.
Well, I'll take care of that. Because my time has been whittled down for months and months, so it's good.
This is true.
Let's see, I gotta get to the right thing here. How about if I go to Drive? That's probably what I'm looking for. Yeah. Agenda minutes. I think this is it. Yeah, there we go. All right, so before I actually get into this, I wanted to say something about the question that Jack just asked about how many wells were about that depth, 170, 180 feet deep. Because when I looked up the depths for these wells that had hits, these ones that are east of Wagner Road and north of M14, all of these seem to be within a certain layer of aquifer. And these are all around that. The depths vary because the surface elevation goes up and down, but the aquifer is, of course, pretty much one layer. And we would expect that there should be some more wells in this area that, at that elevation to detect how these hits of even more than 1 part per billion got all the way up here without being found. And following on with that, since the standard for the county and EGLE was to go out 1,000 feet from where dioxin has been detected and do sampling from that. Let's see what 1,000 feet out from this area would be and see how many homes would be. Oops, I gotta stamp it closed. There we go. And drag the center down. So you can kind of see that this is going to include a lot bigger area. If you go out 1,000 feet from where the 1 part per billion hits have been. There's some in here, and I think there's some down here. And of course, these wells were not sampled as part of the state sampling, as I recall, these two new hits on. And there's some other wells at that elevation in here that should be sampled. So we'll have a better idea. But remember, we're going back to using homeowner wells as monitoring wells. Well, it's kind of too late then, isn't it? Because it already got to their wells. We would like to have an idea of where this dioxide is going to go and hit more homeowner wells without waiting till it gets there. And this is why I hope the EPA will do a better job of. Let me go back to my other share. Well, we already talked about. I don't have any more information than what we already discussed about what does the Court of Appeals ruling mean for all the interveners. And I think the consensus among many of us here at CARD is that let's just get on with the EPA, because only they have the enforcement capability to make the company do what's required. And thanks, Dan, for pointing out the status of the confidentiality agreement. It's again a win for Gelman because they don't have to disclose what's really happening. We don't need to, apparently the public really doesn't need to know, have a good definition of their dioxin and our waters of the state. All right, we took care of this. We actually got the sampling from the township just yesterday, and I've started to plot some of it. And these, just for anybody who's in SIO that said, well, gee, I'd like to have my well sampled, there's a link to that where you can have samples done on the SIO website, and you can get to the SIO website from the SRSW website. So you don't have to go hunting around. You can go to SRSW and get to all the other stakeholder websites. Here's the images that I made from the sampling we did get. I think I have this open already somewhere up here. Let me open it up again. So these are just screenshots of what, when I put these on Google Earth, I didn't have all the non-detects because there's like 50 of those that I didn't have time to plot. And because of the way the data was shared, it's kind of like you have to do, I think, Dan, when you update, you have to do them one at a time because the data wasn't shared in a GIS friendly manner.
Roger, Jeff Hayner has his hand up.
Yes, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks. Just real quick while you're loading up your thing. So I obviously I agree that the EPA intervention is more important than ever. And I would also probably suggest that I can only imagine that the city and the other intervening parties are going to continue to press all options to get the best cleanup we can, including, asking the state to increase pressure on Gelman and, likely remaining in the courts with, our various cases. So but I agree that all options are open. And at the same time, it seems that they kind of fluctuate. Some seem better and more practical than others at times. And it kind of goes back and forth, but I think Kathy would agree that we are, wanting to press on all fronts. So I wish CARD sometimes I wish CARD would get involved and had some kind of way to, kind of get more involved legally. I know we're an odd group out here, but we know so much.
This is how much money CARD has.
I know, Roger. That's why I say it, but I just, I wish we had a different kind of status sometimes.
Well, I will
Anyway,
say that
yeah,
CARD members
that's all.
were instrumental in winning key aspects of the contested case. Otherwise, Gelman would have been discharging 60 to 100 parts per billion into Honey Creek from the original, one of the original permits. This is after citizens and all the other stakeholders had negotiated a better discharge plan and got it approved through Silo, even signed the document to that effect. But then Gelman took back over the cleanup and reneged on that agreement. And then they were going to discharge 60 to 100 parts per billion into the partially treated purge water dioxide into the creek. And at the last week or so, the company contested the permit that said that they had to get down to, I think, 30 or five parts per billion or something like. Anyway, so it turned out to be citizen action saved Ann Arbor's water supply back then. But we're in a different ballgame now. We need the EPA in to take care of this. So there'll be more postings on the SRSW website of these new hits, new data. Let's see what else. If I jump over to here's all the new hits that were and former hits from the 4 rounds of testing so far. And Siro's not going to is not going to fund any more testing. Any testing that's going on is going to be done privately, so we'll probably won't get the results of that unless the homeowners want to share it. And I think it's time to say that there is not just one plume that's a mile wide and more than 4 miles long. If you did that, you'd have to say there's the set of plumes is more than 4 miles long and more than 2.5 miles wide. So jump from 1 mile wide to 2.5 miles wide because of this sampling that's been done. And we really need to know how this happened and whether it's happening in other areas like over here. These are different elevations of this well here, and of course over where this hit was here. And the company, the polluter, should be paying for all this sampling. We shouldn't be having to put that back on the public. There should be no more transfer of cost and risk to the public on this. The EPA will be more strict about that. Let me go back to the next item. I think we're done here. Yeah. I mentioned this earlier that the 26 hits that were that the SIO found with their analysis method that goes down to 0.12 parts per billion, 2/3 of those were above 0.5. So if the state was sampling with their newest, stricter method, they would have found 17 of those 26 hits. And maybe those should be among the ones sampled every year or two going forward. Do you know if that's part of the plan, Dan?
Was that question of me, Roger?
Yeah. Yeah. Of those,
well, we will work with Washtenaw County. Jenny really puts together, takes a look at that data and puts together the plan. Like I said, we've committed to sampling a lot more in Scioto Township, but we aren't, I want to manage expectations. We aren't going to do that every year. Again, what we are, the whole objective of that long-term monitoring program is to get an indication, identify whether someone's at an immediate risk of drinking, water above a criteria, above the 7.2.
Yeah.
And then also get an indication of, is there a future risk? And so I want to manage the expectations of this group that, we'll go out and next year and do a larger sampling event, but we aren't gonna say we're gonna do that every year. We're gonna probably mainly stay around the edges of the current plume and identify, because that is where there would be an immediate risk of someone drinking contaminated groundwater above 7.2 parts per billion.
Well, and to know what's in the pipeline, what's heading that way.
Right. But again, that's not necessarily the objective of long-term monitoring program, that way. It is a secondary objective, but the program is related to, is there an immediate risk with someone?
Right. And hopefully the EPA will pick up from there and do a more.
Beth, do you have a question for me?
Well, I think what Roger was asking was those people in SIO that did have low detection levels, are they going to be part of the annual? Just like
Well,
Elizabeth
watch
Home.
how you say that. They're going to be. We are going to sample some of the same. We are. There's a list. I'd have to go through the list and make a match. But we're going to go back to some of those same locations and confirm next year.
Good.
Thanks. But to call it an annual, we're doing it next year, and then we'll evaluate and see what, like I said, what's the objective, because it is a cost. Gelman is not paying for that. It is a state funded, so it is us. It's taxpayers.
Well,
so,
there was a settlement, Dan. The state.
Well, yeah, Roger. I mean, you're right. In 2014, for whatever reason back then, with how there was a settlement with Gelman for all past and future, oversight, sampling costs. Yes.
$500,000.
Good deal, bad deal. I know you consider it's a bad deal, but Gelman paid $500,000 to the state to settle past and future sampling, costs. And so the state accepted that. And so that we can't.
How much is it costing every year?
How much does it cost us every year?
Yeah.
Under the long-term program, it's these are approximate. Let's say it's a $115, $120 for the analysis, and then we kind of Washtenaw County gets paid around $40 or $50 per well to go collect. And
so do you have a total per year for that?
I don't have it in front of me, Roger. I think next year it's in.
Who has that? Isn't it your line item budget, right?
Well, it's under that program. I can get it. I mean, I have it for next year, the estimate. I just don't have it handy right here.
Next month, I would like to see how much it's cost the state for their sampling year by year. That should just.
I'll put that down, Roger, as an action item, and
seems like
try to get that information for us next month.
Yeah.
Can I call a point of order?
Yeah.
Some of this is not really productive, and I think it should be done in emails offline. We started out with a really good environment, really positive for this meeting, and maybe it's just getting late, but it's sinking.
Well, I'm trying to use up that extra 10 minutes.
Okay. Neutral or positive comments.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks. You've been having some really good information this month. Now let's talk about how we're going to do. I already mentioned this, that we're going to have some new layers on Google Earth to show the new information. But let's talk about what we're going to do in the coming year with the CARD meetings. I think most people I've talked to think that the hybrid or at least Zoom meetings is definitely something we should continue, because we can see details from different people that you can't see in in-person meetings. The in-person meetings are good because you get to schmooze more and you get to know people as people. And maybe we should consider having a hybrid meeting every few months. And if we're going to do that, where would we do it? And is SIO's meeting room available starting in 2023? Do you know, Kathy? that's something that would be feasible.
I would have to check. The meetings are always scheduled out way in advance, so I can't just say at this time.
So if we check this month for next year, see if that's feasible and get back.
Well, what, wait, what? Once every 3 months, once every 4 months, what are you talking about?
Well, if we did it in person, I would think it would be every 3 months because we already have quarterly meeting schedule. I don't think we want to do it every month.
So are you proposing that our quarterly meetings be in person?
Hybrid.
Oh, okay.
Those that want to come in person, they come in person. Otherwise, they can do it on Zoom. And then Silas set up where we can actually do something like that.
Yeah, but someone has to run the Zoom equipment.
Well, that's true, but we have time to get somebody trained.
Okay, so you're proposing the quarterly meetings be held at SIO?
I'm just wondering if that's possible. Yeah.
Well, I can check, but I just wanted to get it narrowed down so I knew what dates to check, because those are 10 a.m. meetings.
Well, that's true. Would that affect you, Dan Hamel?
Well, no,
I mean, you wouldn't have to come in person.
right. I wouldn't have to, but I work during the day. So no, it wouldn't affect me whether it's 10 o'clock. It'd probably affect me more if we had it at 6 p.m. because if I did come in person, it's after, long day, but.
Yeah. For a raise of hands, if you're on screen, how many would perhaps come in person?
Well, we've got a couple of hands up already. Oh, they just disappeared. Never mind.
I just wanted to get an idea if there's some people that would come in person. Okay. All right. So thank you, Kathy. Vince, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to make a comment about Jeff Hayner's comments that wish that CARD could do more. But my impression is that CARD has done a tremendous amount. CARD has basically gotten the EPA to take this really seriously. The data we've collected, the near shallow groundwater, the surveying of the government officials and getting positive results, surveying just people in general, got positive results. We surveyed people at the Green Fair, got very positive results. So we've done a lot to try and get EPA on board. And I think the elected officials I've talked to and some others have said, yeah, that it made a huge difference. And I don't think we'd be nearly as far along if CARD did not exist. And the Allen's Creek Watershed Group and other groups involved made a big difference. And I think brought the reality to the fore. And so I think, it's probably going to happen. And I think we should take some credit for that. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm not disparaging CARD. I'm searching for other groups to come forward and sue Gelman to apply as much pressure as possible.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
I kind of understood Jeff as asking CARD to spend $1 million on lawyers like the city has. That's maybe just a comprehension problem here.
That's Jack Pro Bono Eaton speaking.
Yeah, the check's in the mail.
Oh, and I forgot to add this to the list here, but the Green Fair is Friday, 6 to 9 p.m. downtown Ann Arbor, Main Street.
We still have James with his hand in the air.
Oh, there's James. Yeah, James, go ahead.
Yeah, and the hour is late, but we discussed last night about last meeting, regarding CARD passing a resolution in support of polluters pay legislation. I think it's important that this organization at least make a statement regarding recent events in Wixom with Tri-Bar management, and also I basically it's a good PR measure. Whether the EPA or not, I still think the EPA should probably be the primary lead on this. given the circumstances and probably still under the court decrees. But it would be nice to have a stronger state stance on these issues. And I must confess that either Beth or Roger, if you could pull the resolution up.
Roger, do you have it, or do you want to stop the screen sharing and I can do it?
I didn't, I had it up, but now I can't find it. So yeah, go ahead. I'll stop.
Well,
screen sharing.
yeah,
But
stop yours.
Can we go to that right after I finish up here? Because I
Sure.
just wanted to find out about the Green Fair. Who can come down and help answer questions? Vince, you'll be there. I have an awning and some of our normal materials. I don't think we need the water cycle coloring, Vince, because it's going to be cold and late for the kids. So I'll just concentrate on answering questions people have this week.
So what are the hours of the Green Fair?
6 to 9 p.m. The setup is, I think, starting at 5:30 or something like that.
And do you know the location where your table's going to be? Our
No,
table?
they were supposed to share that tomorrow. So I'll share that with CardCore and put the details in and say any volunteers can come down, because we'll need help schlepping the stuff from the parking lot next to Palio's where we're supposed to unload. We can't drive down the street like we used to.
You have to fight your way through the vote yes on the climate action millage booths, but I'll try and make it down there.
Okay.
This is like a big dog and pony show for the climate action millage, you know?
Yeah, I posted a comment on Facebook. Somebody had a Facebook thing about this IO stuff. So I said, well, we're going to be there. We're going to answer what we know about this IO sampling and any other things we covered today. So thanks. One more thing here. You can read this later. This link will be up. Back in 2004, as part of their submittals.
Are we going to discuss the resolution at least briefly, Roger?
I did put it in the right order. I'm going to jump back to that. So back in that time, the company was saying that anything less than 500 parts per billion of dioxin is modestly contaminated. So my question for them is, do they still consider groundwater up to 500 parts per billion modestly contaminated? All right, so I'm done. Let's go. Let me stop the share. And James, I can probably bring it up now if I can.
Oh, okay.
You can send it. You sent it to me on a link. Yeah, here it is. Should it's coming. Yes. You know, I got like 15 tabs open. I might have something to do with it.
Well, what I think we should do is have like, I'll circulate it to CardCore, and we can have maybe a 3 or 4 day viewing, and people, if they have other ideas, something they want to add, or a whereas, or something they're concerned about and want it taken out, that kind of stuff. And then
right.
According to the bylaws, then we need 7 days from the once we draft the resolution to our liking, 7 days for a vote of the voting eligible members, which is those who have attended 3 of the last 5 meetings.
And
we can have a special I would like that. I think that would be a good way to go. And I just want to make one comment very quickly. I must confess, I want to thank Councilmember Griswold for this, because to some degree I went to school in terms of the resolution that went before council. You'll find much of it very similar to the language that was there. However, it is adapted to CARD a little bit, and I do recommend that committee members, if they have other whereases or suggestions, that we hash this out. It should be a good, strong document. And by the way, I will be traveling for commencing Thursday through Sunday. So have input from me, probably do it early next week.
Go ahead,
Thank you.
Kathy.
Had your hand up, Kathy?
Yes, I just want to say that the resolution that the Ann Arbor Council passed was based on the one from Oakland County. And the legal department looked at it and they made some minor changes, but I don't know what they are. Change control wasn't on. They were very minor in the whereas clauses. And their only concern is that if the city polluted, they didn't want it to apply. And so I don't know as a card organization how we feel about that.
I would say look at the language and see what we want, and we may decide we may not want to do this, but I certainly recommend changes if people have it. We maybe want some stronger language in terms of transparency, which I realize I did not put in terms of the resolution.
Yeah, I think we should post that as a document that can be commented on by all the people. And those people that are interested, we could have a special Zoom session to discuss it in detail and then get it
good
in with the week, 7 day before the next meeting or something.
All right. I will point out that there's not a huge rush on this, but if it's, if it's ready by the next meeting, that's great.
Roger, can you get it into a G Drive document?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Thank you.
it's docs, so I'll just upload it as a Google Drive for Cardcore.
And then let me know when that's ready and I'll circulate it.
Okay.
Thank you for doing it, James.
Yes, thanks, James.
Thanks, James.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I was going to use the last 10 minutes that I've already used up to go around and see if anybody had any last minute comments. If there's any other things that people want to point out, but we're out of time.
I would like to comment, but I will be down at the Green Fair on Friday.
Oh, good. Yeah. I might bring a heater if it's really going to be as cold as they say. I've got lots of extension cords because I want to be able to have a computer.
So are you trying to talk us out of it?
Yeah,
No, I'm saying the more people we have, the warmer it's going to be.
This is
It's not going to rain though. It doesn't.
And because it's downtown on a Friday night, doesn't that
pretty-
mean you can walk around with drinks so we can have like hot chocolate?
Oh God.
I think that's what we should do.
It is well located within the social district. So any participating dispensary, alcohol dispensary, you can walk in there and get it in a to-go cup and walk out with it.
So does somebody want to find one? I don't know where the table is yet, but once I share it, does somebody want to find a place nearby as a warming station, libation station that we can, trade off going to the for those 3 hours?
Kathy's got her hand up. Go ahead, Kathy. We're running out of time.
No, I'll volunteer for that.
All right, good.
Oh, I'll miss you guys.
All righty. Well,
you have to do it remotely.
Oh, we missed you,
with
Beth.
that in mind, I'm going to conclude this meeting with the reminder that our next meeting is November 1st at 6 p.m. It's wonderful to see everybody.
Good meeting.
Yep. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks, Jack.
Jolly Pumpkin
Thanks.
participates.
Okay.
Good seeing everyone.
See you, Beth.
Miss you, Beth.
Thank you.
Bye. Miss you too.
Good to see you, Beth.
Thanks.
Miss you, Beth.
Bye, guys.
Good night.
Bye, Dan. Bye, Kathy. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Almost on time.
Thanks, Roger. Have a nice night.
Thanks, James, for getting on with that. Where's my stop share?